Well, folks, it happened. Keir Starmer, the man who makes beige look flamboyant, is the British Prime Minister. How did a nation known for its love of tea and queuing end up with a leader who makes a cuppa look exciting? It's a question that has left many scratching their heads. It remains one of life's great mysteries, much like the enduring appeal of those singing fish plaques. You know, the ones that belt out, "Don't worry, be happy" at the press of a button. Maybe it was the promise of competent governance, a leader who could steer the ship through stormy waters. Perhaps everyone was just tired of chaos. The endless cycle of political drama and uncertainty had worn people down. Or maybe, just maybe, the collective national sense of humor finally broke. After all, laughter is the best medicine, right? Whatever the reason, here we are, stuck in a political sitcom written by someone who thought, yes, Minister was a bit too edgy. It's like living in a never-ending episode of a show that's both hilarious and tragic. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're about to take a wild ride through Starmer's Britain, a journey filled with unexpected twists and turns. It's a journey where the policies are colder than your nan's spare room in February, and the heating bills are just as chilling. And the only thing rising faster than the price of milk is the national sense of bewildered despair. It's a time of uncertainty where every trip to the supermarket feels like a gamble. Yet, amidst all this, there's a resilience, a spirit that keeps people going, even when the going gets tough, because at the end of the day, this is Britain. And if there's one thing Brits know how to do, it's to keep calm and carry on. Let's talk policy, shall we? It's always a riveting topic, especially when it involves the well-being of our most vulnerable citizens. Specifically, let's talk about how Starmer seems to have mistaken governing a nation for playing a game of how many pensioners can we make shiver. It's almost as if he's trying to set a new record. His first move, cutting winter fuel allowances. Yes, you heard that right. The very support that helps our elderly stay warm during the harsh winter months. Because remember, folks, there's nothing that screams fiscal responsibility quite like ensuring that the elderly have to choose between heating and eating. It's a choice no one should have to make. Yet here we are. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. But wait, there's more. This isn't just about fuel allowances. He's also a big fan of two-tier policing. Yes, the kind where the wealthy get foot massages and the rest of us get a baton to the shins if we so much as breathe too loudly in public. You know, the kind where the wealthy get foot massages and the rest of us get a baton to the shins if we so much as breathe too loudly in public. It's a system that really makes you feel valued, doesn't it? It's all about fairness, you see. Or at least their version of fairness. Or at least it's about as fair as a game of Monopoly where one player starts with all the hotels and a get-out-of-jail-free card. Because nothing says equality like a rigged game from the start. The thing about two-tier policing, and let's be clear, that's just a polite way of saying blatant classism, is that it doesn't really work. It creates a divide so deep that it becomes almost impossible to bridge, fostering resentment and anger on both sides. Imagine this, you've got a lovely little riot brewing, the kind fueled by a delightful cocktail of economic inequality and existential dread. People are out on the streets, voices raised, demanding change, justice, and a fair shot at life. On one side, you've got Derek, who used to work at the local factory until a robot named EfficiencyBot 3000 took his job. Derek's not just angry, he's desperate. His livelihood was snatched away by a machine, and now he's left to fend for himself in an unforgiving economy. Derek's a bit miffed, mainly because EfficiencyBot 3000 hasn't figured out how to play darts down the pub yet, and Derek misses his mates. The pub was his sanctuary, a place where he could unwind and forget his troubles, if only for a little while. On the other side, you've got Tarquin, who summers in Tuscany and considers a slight dip in his stock portfolio a personal affront to his very being. Tarquin's world is one of luxury and privilege, where the biggest worry is whether the champagne is chilled to perfection. Tarquin's also a bit miffed, mainly because his driver got stuck in traffic caused by the aforementioned riot, making him late for his weekly polo lesson. For Tarquin, inconvenience is a crisis, a disruption in the seamless flow of his charmed life. Now guess who gets the kid glove treatment and who gets a face full of pepper spray? It's a stark contrast, a glaring example of how differently people are treated based on their social standing. It's enough to make you wonder if they're even reading from the same rule book. or if Tarquin's just brought his own set of platinum-plated regulations. The disparity is so blatant, it's almost as if there are two different worlds coexisting side by side, each with its own set of rules and consequences. The migrant crisis. A complex issue with no easy solutions, unless, of course, your solution involves building metaphorical walls so high they'd make Trump blush and treating desperate people like they're carrying the plague. Then, my friends, you've got yourself a Starmer special. Forget compassion, empathy, or even a basic understanding of international law. We're talking about policies so harsh they could curdle milk. It's like someone handed the Home Office a copy of the Art of the Deal and said, do the opposite of this. The irony, of course, is that this approach isn't just morally bankrupt, it's also spectacularly ineffective. But hey, who needs a functioning immigration system when you can score cheap political points by demonizing vulnerable people, right? Section 5. Riots in the streets. Turns out people don't like freezing. Remember those winter fuel allowance cuts we talked about? Yeah, about that. Turns out telling a significant portion of the population to just wear another sweater doesn't exactly inspire confidence in your leadership. Who knew? So now we've got riots, and not the fun kind with bouncy castles and free hot dogs. The kind where people set things on fire and throw bricks with alarming accuracy. It's almost like people object to being treated like disposable pawns in some grand economic experiment. The government, meanwhile, seems surprised. It's like they're watching a dog chase its tail and wondering how it got itself into that predicament. Didn't anyone tell them to just eat cake? One can only imagine them saying from the comfort of their centrally heated offices. Section 6, Starmer's legacy, a masterclass in mismanagement. So where does this all leave us? In a word screwed, Keir Starmer, the man who promised a return to stability and competence, has instead delivered a masterclass in how to alienate a nation faster than a vegan at a sausage fest. His legacy, well, aside from a spike in sales of thermal underwear and a newfound appreciation for the comedic stylings of political satirists, it's a bit early to say. But one thing's for sure, he's certainly made British politics interesting again. Of course, interesting in this context is a bit like saying that root canal surgery is an interesting way to spend an afternoon. Section 7, what's next for Britain? Spoiler, it's bleak. What's next for this sceptred isle? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe we'll finally perfect that whole storming the Bastille thing. Maybe we'll just retreat into our homes and wait for the whole thing to blow over, emerging only for essential tea and biscuit runs. Or maybe, just maybe, we'll find a way to laugh about it all. Because, let's face it, if we don't laugh, we'll cry. And, frankly, I'm all cried out. Section 8, and now, your regularly scheduled programming. And on that cheery note, we're out of time. Tune in next week when we'll be discussing the rise of competitive ferret grooming, or possibly the existential threat posed by rogue garden gnomes. Until then, try not to riot, stay warm, and for the love of all that is holy, don't let Kier Starmer anywhere near your thermostat. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.